episode 8. If you remember in episode 6, I debuted the 3,000 gallon aquarium behind me. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for the great comments, but I also want to say that there was some common themes in the comments, and one of them was, how did you build that thing? What did it take to build that thing? So I decided, episode 8, how I built the 3,000 gallon. So for people who are interested in how to build this thing, this is the episode for you. I'm sure some people saw episode 6 and thought, who is this crazy guy and why did he build a 3,000 gallon aquarium? So if you want to see exactly how crazy I am, this is the episode for you. It's going to be a big one because as you can imagine, making a 3,000 gallon aquarium is quite a bit of work. I'm also going to include the mistakes too, of which there were a few. So you'll get to see the mess ups as well as the progression of the tank. So get your favorite beverage, kick back, and let's take this back to the beginning and show you how this was built. Oh, and real quick, the beginning is a little bit of a slideshow, but that's only for a couple minutes when I was doing building the low-level structure, the wood structure, because I didn't videotape that. I don't think that'd be interesting anyways, but I promise you it does become a video again after just a few minutes. All right, let's check it out. Okay, the very beginning, the foundation is down on the floor. One thing you might notice is not only am I building a 3,000 gallon aquarium, but I'm refinishing the basement at the same time. So this whole thing took about a year to complete. So as you can see, the framing is coming up on the 3,000 gallon and it is super heavy duty. Lots of 6x6s, lots of 2x6s, lots of doubled up, screwed and glued. Very, very strong. You're gonna see my cat throughout the video. She likes to inspect my work and lets me know when I mess up. Here we are just putting the structure that goes underneath the base of the tank across the top, and then there's the base of the tank, which is 3/4 inch birch plywood. You already see the pole in the middle, and you see how I'm boxing around the pole with my stacked 2x4 build. So these 2x4s are stacked and they're overlapped on the corners, and they're glued and screwed everywhere. And as you can see, it's starting to come up, and you see the floor of the basement. I'm laying tile. I've got a ceiling in, lights, so there's a lot going on at one time. Just a view of the length of the tank, stacking up. Part of the reason I built that way was because it's super strong and I need to be climbing on top of the tank and everything. Quick look at the beginnings of the sump, putting the insulated panels in there. Now back inside the tank, it has plywood, so it gives me a smooth surface to put the pond armor and the epoxy and everything on, instead of all the grooves with the stacked lumber. Just a few shots from the front. I built a faux wall in front of the tank, and you can see I'm drywalling that and finishing it, and then just starting to add the trim and everything. Now keep in mind, that wall in front of the tank, that's not part of the tank. It's its own separate structure. It's just butted right up against it. Still just trimming it out. You can see the origins now of the beginnings of the tops. Over the glass panels, I have removable tops that look like the wall, but as you see here, they can be removed to give me access to the tank, because the tank is very deep, and if you only had access from the back, that wouldn't be enough. Just to look inside at that plywood I was telling you about, where you can see where I've started to fill the screw holes with the wood filler, and just another shot. So getting that smooth surface, getting it wood filled, and then the next step is I'm going to go and start fiberglassing all the seams. This is just kind of a quick look at, the entire inside has been lined with the plywood. It's been filled with all the screw holes have been filled, and you can see I've already put down fiberglass mat across all the seams, and I've done an entire coat of fiberglass epoxy or epoxy resin over all the wood. So it's basically just a third coat underneath the 2 coats of pond armor that are coming up. But I see here every seam has multiple layers of fiberglass mat and resin on it, so sort of create one big smooth surface. The nice thing about doing a wood build with epoxy paint is the shape doesn't matter. So you can have all these weird angles and everything, and it's fine as long as your surface is rigid. It's not going to flex or move. The pond armor can be painted over, or the 2-part epoxy can be painted over any shape you want. And what I did here was, with the extra resin, is I went ahead and just poured it, mixed it with the hardener, and then poured it out on the bottom of the tank, just to give you super strong bottom area, because the most pressure in the aquarium is going to be at the bottom. So now we get to the pond armor. The first coat of the pond armor, here's just the thing, actually pond shield. I always call it pond armor. I think it used to be called pond armor, and now they call it pond shield, but it's the same thing. It's a two-part epoxy. You see the first coat here is a gray color. So this isn't the final coat. The final coat is going to be black. But the reason I use two different colors is so that when I apply the second coat, it's easy to see where I need to paint it. If I just did gray over gray or the same color over the same color, it would be hard to tell, you know, what was the old coating and where's the new coating. So just to make it better for coverage, I use the two different colors. And then for the color that is not going to be the top color, I always choose whatever color is the cheapest at the time, because believe it or not, the Pond Shield product, it has different prices for different colors. So other than clear, I think clear might be the cheapest, but clear would be difficult for me to tell where I painted over top of all the fiberglass resin. So I needed a color. I think the two cheapest colors were tan and gray. So I chose gray. And so now once I put that first gray coat on and I come back to put the black coat, it should be really easy to tell, you know, where I've covered and where I haven't covered yet. And just a quick look over the top. Sometimes it's, you know, a tank this size, it's hard to tell the size of it just looking in one of the front panels. So looking the, you know, the length of the aquarium just really shows you how massive it is. And there, I think there's a few views later on. This may show you the width front to back being 6 feet, but you know, there's other views that really help you tell that. And of course, it's been fully inspected, so you don't have to take my word for it that this is a well-built tank. My on-site cat inspector is very thorough, and she checks out pretty much everything I build. So it seems like it is passing the inspection. It doesn't seem like she's flagging me for any missed spots. So this is my buddy Mike. Came over to help me with the glass panel installation. So these panels of glass are 8 feet long, 3 feet tall, and ½ inch thick. They weigh a ton. So maneuvering them, you know, in through the front glass without gouging, you know, you see the blankets down there, but you don't want to gouge all the epoxy. But moving these things around and getting them in place, it's really a two-person job. And another thing, oh, here we are showing the GE1 silicone. You just want regular silicone. You don't want any silicone with additives, like mold inhibitors or anything like that, just straight silicone. And this is the other panel that's going over on the right side. You can get an idea how massive it is. But when you're squeezing out all this silicone, I mean just a ton of silicone per panel, your hand will is dying. You know, squeezing that trigger over and over and over, and swapping out the canister for a fresh can of silicone, and because you only have a certain amount of time for it to work up. So it really helps to have two people to do this, to split that job in half. And you can see what Mike is doing here is he's putting down a bead of silicone that the glass panel is going to sit on top of. And you see that we put the blue painter's tape, and that's for when we push the panel up into place, a ton of the silicone is going to squirt out, and that just helps give us a clean line for the razor blade to cut off the excess silicone right on the top of the tape that you see there. And as you can see, we're clamping the glass panel on the top and then using blankets with 2x4 braces to push the panel into place to squish that silicone in between the front wall and the glass. Because the way this works is that panel is actually sort of floating in a way, free floating. The thing that holds it in place is the pressure of the water, and the silicone is really just forming a gasket. So the more water you put in, the more pressure it pushes on that glass, which the more it squeezes that silicone and just creates a giant 4-inch bead or gasket of silicone all around the window. So the weakest it'll ever be is before you put water in it, and then the more full it gets, the stronger it gets. And so now you see we got working on the second piece of glass here. You know, you got to get that into place first. You got to move it up, you got to tape it, and you got to get it all ready, then put it back down, and then you start with the silicone again. So the first panel, I did it right. And the second panel, you're going to see here in a minute, I actually made a mistake that I was able to fix, but oh my gosh, it was kind of a pain in the butt. So you see there, we got the second panel siliconed in there, just like the first one. You also might notice I bought more clamps because I didn't really have enough for the first one. So more clamps. You can see the damage I did to the front of the wood area there, which I later sanded off and repainted. But working with the pond armor on the silicone is all pretty messy. And also you see that the tank is black now, not gray. That's that second coat, the final coat of pond armor, which is the black pond armor there. Also, the inspector is on the job right in the back of the tank there, keeping an eye on everything, making sure we didn't make any mistakes, though she didn't flag me on the one mistake I did make, which I'll show you in a second when I go back around to the back of the tank. As you can imagine, it's starting to get a little bit exciting at this point because it's kind of starting to look like a tank a little bit. So, you know, as a fish keeper, you know, we're only at this part, and in my mind, I've already filled this thing up with water and I got fish swimming around. But here's where I made the mistake. If you look in the bottom there, I have the wood that is against the glass that I'm then pushing the other wood against to brace it, to put pressure on it. But that bottom piece of wood is touching that silicone bead that's on the bottom of the tank. And so by the time I pull these supports out, that silicone was stuck to that wood hardcore. And I didn't want to destroy that silicone bead, but I had to take a razor blade and cut that wood out, and I had to basically cut out that bottom silicone. Now, not the silicone between the glass and the structure, but the bead in front of it that goes around the edge of the glass. I had to cut that out and redo that because that wood was so stuck in place, I couldn't get it out. So that was mistake number one with the tank. All right, so here we go. This is absolute stress zone right here, filling up the aquarium. I mean, you build something like this and you start putting in 3,000 gallons of water for the test fill. I don't know, if you're not nervous, then you're better man than me, because I felt like I did everything, you know, right. I double, triple checked everything, but it's a lot of water. If there's a leak, you know, it would just be brutal. So super excited. Water's going in the tank. Super stressed. I might have messed up and there might be water dripping on the floor right now. As you can tell, it's going to take a while. Okay, it's day 5 and the aquarium's still filling. Just kidding. Been a couple hours. We're probably, I don't know, what, a foot deep? Maybe a third, looks like. 3-foot thick tank. So far so good. No leaks. Everything's moving on. As you can see, the mess I created building this thing, so I need to sand that down and repaint the front. And you can also see that above the front there's actually panels that come off. They look like the wall, but when they're off you get access to the front of the tank, which with the tank this deep front to back is pretty important. Come over here to the other side. You can see here's what it looks like with the panel installed. More or less looks like the trim of the wall. There's just another view of it filling up. We'll go ahead and come around to the side. And we'll go up and over. A little bit of a look. Not too much exciting there, but if we look underneath, I haven't finished getting the liner all in place for the sump. But the important thing, what we don't see, is water all over the floor. So if we come around to the back and we look in, all the way down, I've gone down and checked all the way in the front. No water. So that's what I'm looking for. As you can see, there's a wall built right into it's not part of the tank, but it's sort of right up against it. Makes it look like it's part of it, but you can see the tank is definitely well supported, overbuilt. You got 6x6 footers there, 6x6 posts up there, then a full 2x6 frame, 3/4 inch birch, and then the lovely stacked lumber that is also dovetailed on the corners. So come back around to the front. So it's been about an hour and a half, I'd say, on the front, or to get a third full. So I think I'll I won't check back, make any more video until it's already filled up. I don't think looking at water rising is all that exciting. But I want to give you a feel for the tank in general. Keep in mind, everything you see here will be sanded down, painted nice. You won't see any of this here, all this caulk bulging out and everything. There'll be quarter round molding all along here, all around framing it out. And then you also won't see, you know, any of the support room behind it or those lights or anything like that. The panels will be in up top, and the tank will be covered. There'll be a huge amount of humidity if it was just open top, plus some of the fish I want to keep in there could be jumpers. So that'll be covered, and if you can see through the clear panels, then in the back, probably what I would do then is frost the back, because most of the lighting is going to be geared more towards the front, shining back, sort of down and back towards the back of the tank. Another thing about this tank, I think it's going to be a little different, well, it's going to be a lot different than what I see in many of the tanks that I've seen online in photos and on video, YouTube, whatnot, is that this tank is going to be fully aquascaped. I literally have tons of material waiting to go in after the test fill. So it will be completely aquascaped, not just a giant piece of driftwood or a pile of rocks. It's going to be like what you'd see with a smaller tank. Obviously the scale will match the inhabitants, and I didn't make a tank this big to put guppies in here, so, but it will, hopefully, if I do it right, which I'm going to try my best, it's going to look like the habitat they come from, and when you're looking at it, you're going to think I'm looking at a slice of that habitat and not a giant box with windows full of water and fish floating around. All right, day 2 of the water fill test. 3,000 gallons so far, everything's holding. No leaks, no signs of any leaks. Just gonna let it stay full for at least a few days, probably 5 days. Keep an eye on everything. Been checking the supports, everything looks good. Checking the seals, everything looks good. Checking the structure, right where the pond armor is painted, everything's good. Definitely getting pretty exciting. You know, this is obviously really happy it's not leaking, and also excited because pretty soon I can start scaping and get the fish in here. But what's gonna happen is I'll leave this water. This water is cold too. It was just pumped out of all cold water. So with this size tank, rather than put in cold water and bring it up to temperature, I'll probably go ahead and fill it up with the appropriate temperature. Cheaper to use the hot water heater than it would be to run a bunch of aquarium filters to bring it up to temp. But yeah, let it sit for 5 days, and then I'm going to empty all of this out, and then I'm going to start on all the hardscape and get that in there. Then afterwards, there'll be another fill, the final fill. And during that time too, during the next few days while this is water testing, I can work on the sump and the drains, the filtration, plumbing. So it's definitely, tank's still moving forward, even though it's basically just sitting here holding water. All right, quick update on the 3,000 gallon. It has successfully held water for a week, Saturday to Saturday. So I am now draining the water. So I can get inside and start doing a whole bunch of hardscape work. But it was great. No signs of any problems, no creaking, no groaning, no leaks, nothing unexpected, no shifting, you know, anything you can think of. Just a lot of 3,000 gallons of stagnant water sitting there, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So I can see now there's the hose, and I'm draining it outside here, out into the yard and down the hill. So lots and lots of plumbing materials here. So the thing now is to work on the hardscape, the plumbing, and start getting the sump all up to speed. And hopefully next weekend. Looks like it starts filling this thing back up for the last time, last major fill. And we can get this thing rolling. Get some fish in here. Make it actually interesting to look at instead of a big box of water. All right, I'm a very winded fish keeper. The downside to aquascaping a 3,000 gallon tank is it's a royal pain in the butt. All this 2,000 pounds of sand, 4,000 pounds of rock and wood. It's heavy. Even a little bit at a time, it adds up. So I've been working on this for a few days. Also bending over or kind of on your hands and knees in there. Not quite, you know, it's not tall enough to stand up. Also the light's mounted. There's even less room up there now. But it's starting to come together. Obviously it looks like a total mess right now, but and forget the buckets, those are just sitting there. I think any, you know, fish keepers on aquascaping kind of knows this stage. You know, it all clears up once you get the tank filled up and the pumps running and bacteria starts doing its thing, and filters of course. It'll start to come together. So this is half of a 3,000 gallon. As you know, there's a divider in the middle. So we come over to the other half and continuation of the scape. I'm going for a Amazon biotope look. Most of the fish will be Amazon. There'll be a couple Central American cichlids in there, but I'll try to stay as true to the biotope as possible. But at the end of the day, certain fish I like, I want to keep. For instance, Jack Dempsey, so they're going to be in here. Yeah, this is, you know, I'm just trying to make the riverbank look integrated, not, you know, look as natural as possible. There's going to be a lot of plants, some Bucephandra or whatever, the boost plant in the front, kind of growing along the front of the embankment. And then each one of these is actually a flower pot, and then back there, that's actually all pond plants or pond baskets. And it's just covered over with rock, but they're pond baskets full of fluorite. So a good plant substrate. So there'll be plants growing up here and all in the back and in here and then through all the way on the other side. Let me give you a quick look around back, up and over. So that's the 22-foot long view of the tank. Hopefully the lights aren't killing it too much. But so that's what the fish can do. They just swim that entire 22-foot length. You know, they go back around there, and of course come over onto this side. So I'm definitely excited about some of the bigger fish that I can keep in here and really give them a proper habitat. I mean, I know that they can live in 6-foot, 8-foot tanks, you know, it's just, it's not ideal, it's doable, but it feels good to be able to put something together that the, you know, larger fish, 3-foot fish, 2-foot fish, whatever, can grow out in, live their whole life, and really have plenty of room. Also, the benefit of a tank this size is it allows you to keep some species together that are difficult to keep together in smaller tanks because they're both predators, or they're all predators, and a lot of them are predators, whatever, and they're gonna see the whole tank as their territory. They're not gonna wanna share, and they're gonna also put a little pressure on other species that I like to keep, like Severum and Geophagus. So something like this, I'm expecting. Obviously, this is my first time doing something this big, so I only know what I'm thinking will be the case, but we'll see. All right, I may have to do a clickbait title for this video. How to burn calories and build muscle. Just put 1,000 pounds of sand, 50 pounds at a time, up a ladder and in a tank, and a couple thousand pounds of rock, same way, and over the course of 2 days, and you will definitely get a workout. So I think in the last segment, I think I might have said 2,000 pounds of sand. It's 1,020 bags, 50 pounds each, and the rock somewhere around between 2 and 3, let's call it 2,500 pounds. But it's all in there. So we have the sand, then we have the smaller rocks, sort of medium-sized rock, bigger rocks, wood integrated in, some cave structures here and here. That big plateau you see up there, and then here in the back corner and over here, those are plant baskets full of plant substrate, fluorite, so they will be planted. Obviously I gotta get the water in here first. get it up to temp, but then I will be ordering the plants and they will be going in there, so that'll be much more natural. And then there'll be some plants along the front as well, in the gravel there, to give it a more natural look, like foreground type plants. And of course back there is just sand as we move over to the other side. So it's all done right now. This, well, just kind of filled in with the gravel, or river rock, 3/4 inch river rock. And then there's some 5 to 6 inch river rocks, like these kind over here, and then the big boys. And then wood just sort of integrated in, trying to make it look like root or, you know, submerged logs that are just kind of in the embankment. So the next stage is to fill it up. It takes, so when I test filled it, I think it took maybe 14 hours to fill it up. I have a hose behind it, you know, I mean, it could be done faster maybe, but the size of the spigot I have over there, that's what it could do. So in the meantime, while that's filling up, I'll start working on the plumbing. And the lights are up, I just need to put the timers on them. So I'll run the back lights, you know, probably 8 to 10 hours, and then the front lights maybe 4 hours, 4 to 6, something like that. You know, simulate peak sun. But so yeah, we got to fill it up, work on the plumbing. So we're gonna bring the plumbing up over here. It's gonna come down and into the sump. So the sump is 22 feet long. This first chamber here, it's gonna have a container that I have that the plumbing will come into, and that'll basically be the mechanical media. The water will flow through that, through some mat, out the holes into the sump there. So then at least the first section is gonna have a lot of ceramic material. Probably like kind of like the first couple sections will have ceramic and Japanese matte filter, Matala filter, using a lot of koi ponds, things like that. That gives you biological, and it, you know, anything that gets through the mechanical filter, it's gonna stop that sediment from moving on. And then after that, I probably got another 12 or 14 feet of empty space. So I'm gonna initially, I'm just gonna go with this initial setup. Obviously there'll be a return pump at the very end. All right, the long-awaited fill moment. It's gonna be anticlimactic since it takes 14 hours to fill, but there it is. Water is going in. The entire embankment is in place. All the sand, all the river rock, 3 or 4 different sizes. You can see back here the plant baskets I was talking about in the other videos. You can see it's full of fluorite. So from the front, I've got it all hidden, but back here it doesn't matter. And like, for example, in there, underneath there is a plant basket, and there up front, and in the back. So I'll be planting plenty of things in there, as well as in this gravel in the front of the embankment. Get some foreground plants there. But there we go. It's filling up, and there's the other. Well, I think so. You got 12, so about 10 feet down there in length, and 6 feet, roughly 6 feet front to back. And 3 feet tall, but the water level, I think it goes up to about 34 inches. Or so 2 inches from the surface. So. All right. So you've got a cave front there and on the side. So this is kind of a back area for the fish to go in through the caves and up in the rooftop. From the front, you can't see any of that, so it's not necessarily the prettiest from back here, but it does look good from the front. Part of a tank like this is it takes a nice ladder to get into it. But also this is all going to be painted. Everything you see here will be painted, be black, just to protect the wood over the long term. Even everything covered, you still get a fair amount of humidity. And they got big fish tanks. So here you see we're starting from the left-hand side. The tank does go considerably back behind the glass viewing windows. You got the 2 8-foot windows. Then you have a section behind, a section in the middle, and then on the far side, the section goes behind as well. But so you have some space, the embankment comes up. You have a log that goes across with an open space behind it. You'll have plants on the side here. Plants start up in that big area back there. You got a lot of structure, you got a lot of plants. This area here, also with some plants. Area in front. Good open area here. So I don't want to give away the plant list yet, but there's a couple reasons I need to have the open space. Obviously the fish being a big one. But so then they go back around, nice open space. Come over to the other side, we pick up some structure there with plants. And a big long embankment, all plants around the back there in those baskets. And then lots of wood structure that creates 2 caves there and there, and then they're connected in the back. There's a third sort of section that grows over, then the big open area, and then plants in the back, and then plants all the way up the side. And then the tank over here actually goes at least a foot back, behind the glass, so you got an area up there. That was actually by design. I actually planned to put pumps up there to create the current, to have it blow sort of across and then back to the other side, so I can take water from the far right side and get it all the way to the left side without the current being too strong. So there'll be, in the back corner, will be the pipe for the filter, coming from the sump, pumping up back into the tank, and then in the right here, there will be just a water pump, just to move water, like big power head. All right, it is starting to actually look like an aquarium. So let's see where I left off. I finished with the substrate and I got it filled up. As you can see, it's still plenty cloudy, and there's some, after I planted some of the plants, I knocked some of the rocks over, so I need to clean up that. I got a piece of driftwood that drifted out into the middle of the tank where it doesn't need to be. But other than that, the internal pumps are flowing. I have some of the plants in. Most of the scape is coming along. As you can see, I put the top panels back in, so this is kind of, let me step back here. It's hard to get all 22 feet on picture, but this is kind of the gist of the look, when it's running, has the tops on and everything. And then, just the other side of the tank. Most of the scape's intact. Knocked a few things over. Like over here, for example. I just got some more wood, so there's some more driftwood going in. And this piece here is particularly interesting. But so I'm going to be adding this as well. But first things first is I need to get my saw back out and fix my plumbing. So the only thing with a big tank like this is when you screw up, you spill some water. So there's a fan drying up the water that I spilled. So the problem is I built a PVC overflow system, which, the design is fine. Basically comes down here, ball valve, union valve, into the sump. That pipe is perforated, lots of little holes, goes over a basket full of media, and then on into the giant sump. But where I screwed up is right here. So this is the actual, sorry about the light in the video there. This is the actual tube where the water goes over. It just, the other thing is basically like the filter box. So my problem is my overflow tube is too big compared to my box. So not enough room to get around on the inside of the tank. The reservoir is down here, the tube comes down, but it's taking up too much of the tube, so not enough water can get in. So it is overflowing and it works. But the problem is my return pump, all the way down there, is putting in more water than I'm draining out. So, as you can imagine, after a little time goes by, that doesn't work out too well. It starts overflowing. So fortunately, I was keeping relatively close tabs on it, so I didn't overflow too much water. But at any rate, I need to make a new overflow pipe. So I now have going from a 1.5 to a 1 inch. So this will allow me to overflow a proper amount of water Also, the pump I have, you can control the flow rate on it, so I will start slow and keep very close tabs on it and work my way up. So that's the next steps. I'm gonna build a new overflow pipe to go inside my overflow box. I'm gonna test it all out, and if it's working, what will happen is all this cloudy water will start going through that filter box, and it should become not cloudy. And I will put this wood in down here, which is currently being inspected by my cat, and then I will hopefully have a video where it looks a whole lot like a real aquarium, you know, close to, you know, final stages before ready to put fish in. Down the line, there's a lot more plants going in, obviously a lot of fish, all that kind of good stuff. But I think lighting, filtration, heating's been going fine. I keep the basement warm for these tanks, so it doesn't have to heat too much. It's been keeping up just fine. And the pump is actually too strong, or strong enough. It can't be too strong without the right overflow. So I think everything's looking pretty good. So once I get the plumbing fixed and get it circulating again and get the water cleared up, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on all the rest of the media that goes in that big sump and get that up to stuff. And all right, 3,000 gallon, has water, has functioning plumbing, even has fish transferred over from my other tank. So there is 7 severum in here right now. This is the biggest of the group. This is a few of the other ones here. As you can see, the water is still a little cloudy from the substrate, the sand and the rock and everything. I wanted to go ahead and take some video now, just, you know, show the tank the whole way through, you know, all the way from being built to being semi-functional right now, and then hopefully pretty soon being crystal clear water like the other tanks. Now that the filter's been running for a few hours, it should start to clear up pretty quickly. I'll take another video probably tomorrow, just to track the progress as it goes. I'll take you around back. So this was what I had to fix today, was my original plumbing. Let me get this way so the light doesn't get in the way. So the original plumbing, the box here, the overflow was too thick, so it wasn't enough room to bring the full amount of water in, so the return pump would overflow the tank if I didn't, you know, stop it. So I decreased the size of the overflow to 1 inch, and so now there's a proper amount of water space around the pipe for the water to get in to fill the reservoir up to overflow. And that comes down to the sump, and so it comes down the side there, and then we spray bar across a 4-foot container which has a filter, like a filter fluff type top, but then there's 4 layers of Japanese Matala matte filter. Pretty typical in koi ponds. It's like a plastic mesh of varying gradient degrees, like thickness or level of porousness, and so least or most porous to least porous. So it takes out any kind of particulate matter. It also provides beneficial bacteria. Obviously highly oxygenated, as we have the water going through the air, plus it's pulling air down the tube as it comes across. If we look, and so now starts the dance between keeping the stock moving forward, keeping the filtration moving forward, but obviously keeping the water parameters in check, keeping the water clean and healthy for the fish. So, you know, it's a process of slowly adding fish, building up the, you know, the waste load from feeding the fish, and then building up the bacteria in the filtration to accommodate that. So what I have done to speed that up is I have an existing 220 gallon tank over here, and what I've done is I've been seeding some ceramic filter material in the sump here for over 2 months, which is going to be moved in to the big tank. But I obviously want to wait until the load picks up a little bit in the big tank, because I don't want the bacteria to die off before it has enough to feed on. But then also I don't want the fish to produce more waste than the bacteria can process. So It's a little bit of a dance to get that right, but well, that is not what you want to see first thing in the morning. That water line should not be down. There's definitely a problem. As I said with this channel, I want to show you the good and the bad, the ins and the outs, behind the scenes of my fish keeping experience. And this is the 3,000 gallon missing some water. And this is the Python hose filling it back up. And this is a lot of water on the floor. The good news, well, the bad news is there's a lot of water on the floor. And I've already cleaned a lot of it up. Sorry about the noise back here. With a lot of towels, and I have the fan going. But the good news of this situation is that it isn't the main tank that had any problem. I have clamped on the side up here these two tubes, which are running to an FX4, which I was using just temporarily to polish the water. And what happened is this tube here, which I have connected with this clamp on the inside, it was not clamped onto the tank, but it was clamped on the tube, so it somehow came off. And it was this tube from the FX4 that was blowing water onto the ground, and it was able to get as far as the FX intake went down into the tank, which fortunately wasn't too far. So rather than 3,000 gallons of water on the floor, we only ended up with well, maybe 500 or so. Still a lot, but it is a lot of it. Like I said, I have towel after towel after towel outside drying out. Dried it up, and now I have the fan going. So, and I am recharging the tank. I have the Python running, filling the sump back up. And when that gets full, I will turn the main tank back on and have to replace, I don't know, that's at least 4 inches, maybe 4 to 5 inches of water on a tank that's 22 feet long, 6 feet front to back. That is a good chunk of water. But I still haven't got around to cleaning the glass, but on the inside from the dust and debris from the original setup. That will be happening very soon. Wasn't planning on making a video this morning. Wasn't planning to come down and see this. So, but like I said, the good news. I mean, for someone who just had 500 gallons of water dumped on their floor, I'm actually pretty happy because it was just a minor thing. I tacked on an FX4. It was temporary. I wasn't paying attention to detail, and I didn't clamp down that hose right. My fault. And it wasn't the big tank. Obviously some kind of leak in the big tank would be the big fear. That's why I spent so much time and effort overbuilding everything to prevent that. So it's a bit of relief. You can see obviously the fish are in here. Give you a sneak peek of one of the ruby Oscars. Very happy with these guys. There's a pair of ruby Oscars. Actually, there's a parrot cichlid back there. Cat's in the way, but oh, here you go. There's parrot cichlids right there. Well, you can see them. Light's not on the side of the tank yet. But these came in from Predatory Fins, and they're excellent. They, the packing was excellent. Shipping was very fast, and more importantly, the fish looked great. So, very happy about that. All right, so as you can see, I am pretty crazy. I spent a year building that tank. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun too. I love having it, but it was a lot of work. It is pretty crazy building something like that. But if you like fish like I like fish, I recommend it. It's worth it. I'm gonna put at the end of this video a link to the other video on this tank, episode 6, where it gives you a more in-depth look at the tank itself. And I'll let you know that tomorrow I am actually changing out lighting and changing out a lot of the plants. So I will make an updated video on that, and I'll also include the filter systems too, because I've done a lot of changes to the filter system over the past year that this tank's been running. So if you liked episode 6, or if you like this episode, you want to know more about this tank, stay tuned, because there are more videos coming on this tank.